Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, and our recall triad for pages 155 to 175, that Jewish idea of double return. We've got our summary triad chart here. Let's take a look at Paul's sign of double return coupled with apocalyptic literature. Let's begin with block 1. There was the first return to Jerusalem. In 598 BC, Nebuchadnezzar conquered Jerusalem and exiled the Jews to Babylon. But in 539 BC, 59 years later, Cyrus of Persia defeated Nebuchadnezzar and returned the Jews to rebuild their temple. In 63 BC, Rome's general Pompey conquered Jerusalem. And then in 45 BC, Julius Caesar conquered Pompeii. So eventually, Jerusalem fell under the authority of Rome's first emperor, Augustus. So the first return resulted basically in a elongated exile because they were still slaves to Rome. They were still occupied and dominated by Rome in their own land. So the second block is elongated exile. Many covenant promises remained unfulfilled since their return. The doxa glory had not returned to the temple, which had become corrupted by Rome. There was an eagerness for signs in Jewish culture. The Jews were living within Jeremiah's promised desolation, not a complete destruction, but a partial desolation under the oppression of Rome. The Torah became intensified by the Pharisees as a replacement for God's doxa glory. Jerusalem was a creedzomorphe without the divine form that it was hoping for. They anticipated Daniel's world ruler who would rise up out of Judea and bring political liberation. That takes us to block 3, the second true return. The Jews desperately hoped for the star from Jacob, the coming true Messiah. They needed the advent of the coming Messianic age. They took on the idea of this double return. Babylon and Rome had caused chaos, but not complete end to Jerusalem. The Apocrypha literature sprang up at this time to express the hope for true doxa return. And the protest community of Qumran also sprang up to express hope for the coming Messianic teacher of righteousness. This is how they described the coming Messianic deliverer. He was going to be the teacher of righteousness. The first return brought rescue, but the second return would bring ingathering in divine doxa glory. So we've been given a timeline here. We've been given a new timeline for Paul by N.T. Wright for us to learn. We've got 598 BC, the Babylonian captivity. 539 BC, first return under Cyrus of Persia, who defeated Babylon. Then you got the 490-year promised exile by Daniel. And then you have the 49 BC, which should have been the end of that 490 years, but the Hasmonean dynasty, which was corrupt, a corruption of priesthood, corruption of the temple practice. Roman corruption emerged in 49 BC. Therefore, that end of the 490-year desolation prophesied by Daniel did not come to an end. Instead, there was a corruption of the temple. And then 45 BC, Rome occupies Jerusalem, and the Jews await the returning doxa glory, and the Pharisees look for a political messianic deliverer in a new political messianic age. So tremendous teaching by N.T. Wright, and it helps us to really understand this double return idea, that there was a first return, but there was an elongated exile under Roman oppression, and there was the hope and the look for a readiness for the signs of the coming Messianic age. And that's going to wrap up our recall triad for pages 155 to 175.